Hello, hello. This is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello, thank you, tech enthusiasts, practitioners, business people, technical people, and everyone in between. Thank you for joining me. I'm Irene Lakovetsky. I am incredibly happy to host today Dr. Michael Proksch. Am I
Yes,
pronouncing correctly?
that's true.
Yeah, I'm trying my best.
Yeah,
Michael,
it's all good.
welcome. How are you?
So I'm great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored and very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Perfect, perfect. So today our session is about AI value creation, okay? We can make it very dry, we can make it very scholastic, all right? But looking at the book that you co-authored, right? And the book is named The Secret of AI Value Creation. That's intriguing. That's interesting. We're gonna scratch the surface of this complex topic today. So everyone who is listening to us, please comment, please ask questions. I encourage everyone to follow Michael on LinkedIn. I'm a big fan now. I did open the book and I'm going to probe Michael on his expertise, but mostly, Michael, thank you so much for your time and sharing the expertise with our audience. So let's start somewhere, all right? What about the concept of AI value creation? In 2024, it means different things for different people. So, what's your take on it?
Yeah, that's right. Especially today when we talk about Gen AI and talking about OpenAI, Midjourney, and all the new things that come out every day. The question is, what does actually create value? Like, how much of it is actually hype, and the other, and what can I actually do with it? And there's so many promises out there, and so many ways of where people promise to be, to monetize on the new technology, but for some reason only a handful of organizations are very successful with it. And the question is, how can you actually create value with AI? But the challenge is not new. Like, we have that challenge for many years, and the that's how actually we came to the book. So it's not just me. I'm very lucky to write with the two other very um, two experts in the field. One is Dr. William Beillard. He's CEO of Premier Tech in Canada, and Nisha Paliwal, who's managing vice president at Capital One. And we actually asked the question, okay, how can we put our knowledge together in order to help people with a framework that allows them to differentiate between reality and hype? And how can we create value with AI? What are the different elements and bits and pieces, and what are the challenges that have to be overcome in order to create value with AI? And that's how we got to the book, because we couldn't find a book. We couldn't find anything that was really focused on it, that was focused on the overall perspective of value creation, not just on technology or analytics or the business part. Or you do find books about data, and you find books less about the psychology behind it. But you do find books about every single element, but somehow there wasn't not many books that were doing it holistically. And that's how we said, okay, let's focus on a holistic perspective, because what we also realized many years ago, that it wasn't all those elements are not additive. Like, it's not like that, technology and analytics and data there, you can add them to each other, and then they create value, because that would mean you could compensate one with the other. If you're really good in technology, you don't need to be that good in data, and you don't need to be that good in business. But that's actually not true. So you need to be good at all of them in order to create value. That's why so many organizations fail to create value, because they have weaknesses in one or two or three, or they are not connected. And that's how we said, okay, let's write a book. And now we are here with a book that we just published early this year, and we are very lucky not just to be three co-authors. We have a community of experts, industry experts, invited as contributors to it. So we have Scott Halworth as CDO from Hewlett Packard, and we have Das Gupta, CDO from Saatchi and Saatchi, and then we have many more that contributed to the book. And we are very lucky that they shared their personal stories and their personal successes and failures they overcame in order to create value. And we realized that all of those successful people, for some reason, understood that this relationship is multiplicative, and that there needs to be the overlaps. They don't focus on one or two, they focus on all of the different factors. So we actually were very happy to see that it's not just us that found that success formula.
First of all, congratulations to continue the journey and to launch the book. So absolutely congratulations. I'm sure, our audience will find this link interesting. We're going to put it in the description of the video. Now let's dissect, okay, some of the key factors that you're talking about in the book, or just from your experience, okay, key factors of achieve that AI value creation for the enterprises or maybe medium, size companies.
I mean, I think the first one is that, or the understanding that there is a journey organizations go through, right? So it's an understanding of how can AI can actually create value, and many organizations went through a journey, and the journey wasn't like a year or two. They went through a decade or two on their AI journey, right? And we're talking about a lot of those organizations that went through that journey, and we talk about the idea of how can you actually create value with AI? What are the different factors that, or the dimensions that contribute to it, from understanding business opportunity, understanding the risks of AI, feasibility and adoption risk, to eventually understand how can AI create value? What are the different types of value creation? And we're not talking about segmentation analysis or specific analytical analysis. We're talking about, okay, AI has the ability to optimize business processes, has the ability to augment decision making, has the ability to automate decision making, and last but not least, we can build services and products with AI. And that journey actually becomes more and more complex. While usually business process optimization is the lower hanging fruit, creating products and services is usually very complicated, and you have to, besides all the different elements from business value creation, from process to augmentation of decisions to automation to decisions, you have to create a market fit for it. And that's why so many organizations struggle with that, creating products with AI, because it's a very complex problem. So that's the part number one of the book, and I think that's a critical element or a success element to understand how AI can actually create value. And number two is then we talk about all the challenges that have to be overcome, because AI is not just software. AI is not just a dashboard. AI is more than that and has specific requirements. And we're talking about how do you overcome those requirements? How do you understand the value of data? How do you we're talking about how do you create actionable insights? And it's usually a buzzword everybody's using, but actionable insights are actually critical in order to create value. And then from there, how do you create trust with your stakeholders? A lot of experts in the field are usually working with business stakeholders on solving their problems, but if they don't get trusted, and they don't create trust at the beginning of their projects, the likelihood of failing is pretty high. And then we talk about how do you what is actually AI making? How does AI make decisions? How do you manage those decisions? And we make the mistake that we think that AI makes decisions like humans do, but it's actually not true. AI is a machine, and AI make different decisions. And I think that's important to understand, where are those limitations. So I think that's a second important piece, or a second important pillar to understand in order to create value. And then we have one use case created, one successful project, but how do you make it an initiative? How do you create value long term? Like it's lucky. You can be very lucky to create one successful use case, but how do you make it a long-term success? So we're talking about integration in big organizations, and how do you create a strategy around AI? How do you get senior executive management to come on board with you? How do you run AI projects? Do you run it waterfall? Do you run it more agile? And how should that look like? And we're talking about, how do you create a culture around AI? How do you make people being excited about it? Because a lot of people are actually scared of it, because they are scared of being replaced by AI. But that's in many cases, that's actually not true. And then last but not least, we're talking about the capabilities that are required in order to build all that. So a lot of organizations underestimate the impact of the different capabilities. And we're talking about technology, and that's where everybody usually is focusing on. But then we also focus on data management. So how should data management look like for AI? Because it's a foundational element. Without good data, you can't do good AI. And last but not least, what is the talent that is required in order to create value? And we always talk about data scientists and data engineers, but there's way more talent required in data and AI initiatives in order to create value. You need to have people that understand the business. You need to have people that know how to run projects. You need to have people that understand change management and how do you work with stakeholders? How do you get them excited and how do you get them trust you? And that's usually, and it's really rare to find people that have all of those skills. But even if you have one of those and that's your leader, you don't want to burn those people out. So how do you create a team that has a specific structure that can focus on value creation in a bigger holistic way than just focusing on a specific solution here and there? And I think all those key elements, and that's what we put together in the book, are relevant in order to create value. It's more than just a key element here or a key element there. It's a very complex topic, actually.
Can you maybe share with us how to lead this successful project, all right, having in mind these key capabilities that will help people to progress? Yeah.
That's complicated.
That's complicated. Yeah.
It's complicated to give you an answer in one or two sentences, because it's literally what the book is about. It's about like 340 pages summarizing what needs to be done in order to create value. And I don't want to scare people. That's not the goal of having people shying away from it, because we think that AI can provide tremendous value, and we're mostly talking about our own mistakes. Right, things that we have seen or mistakes that we have made. And especially me, I've made so many mistakes by not seeing beyond beyond my own little puzzle piece, that I always thought I just need to do this and need to do that. But in general, it was like thinking end to end. And I think that was always the clue to success, is how do you think end to end, and what are all the challenges that you need to think about and you need to overcome in order to create value. And when we talk about a specific project, that running a project for a small company where you just start AI is totally different than running a project for a company that does it for many, many years and has 1,000 people that work on the field of data science, AI, and so on. So those projects are totally different from each other, from the requirements, from the capabilities that are needed, and what you need to pay attention to, right? For organizations that are usually more mature, they usually have a good data management, so you don't have to pay attention to that. If you have low maturity organizations in that area, you usually start by paying attention to the data, because if you don't have data, you can't do AI. Or if you're more mature, you have more resources, it's easier to to hire people that are specialized in the field of change management, or specialized project managers or product managers. While when you're new to the area, your budget is usually restricted, and you have a different approach to running those projects, right? Or when you think about the challenges we're talking about in the book, how do you overcome those challenges? Because you overcome them in projects. So how do you overcome those challenges in projects? It usually, when you have projects, the longer the projects are, the most likely are they're going to die. So the shorter, the better. So we try to be, if you run them without, less than 100 days, they are more likely to succeed. So how can you run those projects within 100 days? How can you cut time? How can you make it quick? How can you be pragmatic on the solutions you're trying to create, and not be 100% accurate? You don't need to be 100% accurate. You only need to be 80% accurate, or 90, whatever is necessary in order to be successful. So there's like different approaches to it. Or you have an organization that is totally new to the topic, that doesn't that requires more teaching in the field of project management. Most of those projects include a high level of uncertainty. They're very innovative, especially when you talk about Gen AI today, right? So it's really hard to plan them in a waterfall structure and say, okay, we're going to be in 3 months, we're going to be here. So it's like, how do you help an organization to understand that there's an iterative project management required in order to cope with the uncertainties and the risks, and how do you overcome the different um, steps of the project to be successful, right? So it's like there's every organization has their own hurdles, and there it requires a slightly different approach to the topic. And I think that's the interesting part. How do you tackle those different situations in the organizations or people work in? And I think that's what the book is about. It's not supposed to be, okay, that's your guide, that's how you do it. It's more about, all those things are challenges you think you should be aware of. When we talk about challenges, I like to always talk about Donald Rumsfeld with his known knowns and known unknowns and unknown unknowns, right? Because usually, the known knowns are pretty clear and we try to focus on, and that's when you focus on data scientists and data engineers. But you also know that there's slightly different things that you should pay attention to, but you don't really know how to. So it's like then the known unknowns, and people feel very uncomfortable when, focusing on that. And the last ones is then the unknown unknowns. People are rarely aware of, things that they don't know. But I think that's an important piece also, like that we put our ego to the side and talk about, okay, tell me what I don't know. Tell me about the mistakes I I'm gonna make, because I just haven't done that yet. So I think that's a very critical field that people should try to get out of, that I know everything, because that's just not true.
What's your favorite success story so far? I'm sure your co-authors, right, experience lots of real projects, and there gotta be some shiny, wonderful, successful example that will inspire people.
I mean, we do talk about a couple of success stories, and there's many out there in many specific areas, right? There's success stories from Google, Coca-Cola, IBM, as well as from smaller startups, and we share them. But what we mostly share is like our own failures, because we want people to not follow a specific success. We just want to them follow their own and create something unique, and we just want them to not make the same mistakes we made or I made in the past, and overcome those, right? And that's what we're focusing on. But yes, we talk about success stories from John Deere and how they went on their journey. We talk about Coca-Cola and how Coca-Cola went from data driven to becoming supported through AI to eventually exceeding or human decision making, where AI takes over elements that humans don't or can't do, or are restricted in doing. And we're talking about those examples in many ways, but for many of those organizations, it has been a long journey, and it's not just one story. It's a very long story for them, actually, with lots of sub stories, lots of little elements, little success elements, and certainly failures on the way that we don't know all about, because like they have been on the journey and had to overcome all of them.
What are
Right?
the common challenges? I mean, have you seen in organizations, in your clients, in your real world? Okay, what are the challenges? And again, we can mention, right? What is it? Even shortage on talent, right? Underestimating, the hurdles ahead. Being too optimistic in some case, because everyone's starting with project with the best intention, and of course, we know that the real life brings some elements that may be not counted on. So what are the what are the challenges, and what's the kind of good approach, good mindset, I would say, to start the initiative?
I think you mentioned a couple of them, and they're all true. I think everybody goes towards projects with good intentions, right? And I think there's so many hurdles that can happen. As you mentioned, you don't have the right budget, you don't have the right project management, you don't have a culture, you underestimate your stakeholders, you overestimate the impact it's going to have. You don't even calculate the impact of the AI solution. You underestimate the feasibility problem, the adoption problem, or the adoption risk you're going to have. So there's many ways and many challenges that a lot of organizations have, and I think there's and it shouldn't be negative. It should just be considered as something to, okay, good. How do we tackle that? The challenge is to know them, And I think that's the complicated part, to actually attribute a failure or a problem in a project to the right cause. Right? When we talk about, okay, you failed the project, most of the times we feel embarrassed and we, put it under the rug, but we don't make an analysis. Why did we fail the project? What can we learn, and what can we do different next time, right? And I think we just need to start coming out of that rabbit hole of ignoring that we can't always win. Right? And especially, I come from academia, and it's a thing in academia that you only publish the stuff you're actually successful with, right? But a lot of people make the same mistakes you made many, many, many times, because nobody's talking about where you failed. And I think that's what the book is. It's about, helping people to learn from others and learn from us, where, to not make the same mistakes over and over again.
You touched on very interesting topic, okay? Because academia and real industry experience, all right, they go hand in hand, right? We learn about the latest research. We want to get excited what's possible. At the same time, the real industry experience with your mission critical projects, right? With your clients, with your stakeholders you mentioned, right? It's a different world. It's completely different world. So those who bringing those pieces together, right, especially in large organizations, because that's where you have access to the latest research and the capabilities, budgets again, right? So what's a good kind of angle to look at it, where you still get, the latest and greatest and cutting edge, and being, you're of course a really pioneer and leader in the industry, and at the same time grounding on client work, grounding on what your own best practices include, and trusting your own experts rather than invited wonderful academic advisors. All right, how about that angle?
I think the eventually we need to trust our own experiences. Right? So we need to you can't plan it all out, right? So we need to make mistakes, and we need to be able to make mistakes, right? Most of the time we try to avoid it by planning and reading and preparing, but in most cases we can't prepare for things that haven't ever been done before. And a lot of things we try to do here with the field of AI and innovation, we just haven't seen yet, or nobody's talked about. We are not aware of it. We have to try, and we're gonna make mistakes, and we're gonna fail. And I think that's the type of accepting failure and experimentation is an important one, that we feel secure in actually making mistakes, because otherwise you can't create anything new. If you know how it's done, then because somebody has done it, then it's not new. It's and we see that right
Amazing,
now with the
amazing. Something, yeah. Keep exploring, right? Keep exploring and keep,
yeah,
yeah, driving the, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopefully
and we see
approaching the goal, not moving further. Mhm.
Yeah, right, we see that right now with genai, right? So it's like a lot of organizations try things out, and there's a lot of hype to it, but because people want it to be true, right? So they're following a vision, they're trying to create it. Not everything is feasible, not everything is possible, and then creating adoption is even harder. But if we don't do it, we don't get anywhere, right? So if we don't take that leap of faith and say, okay, look, let's try it, there's nothing you can actually achieve if you don't reach for the stars. How do you get there, right? If Elon Musk wouldn't have reached for the stars many years on Tesla and SpaceX and all the other adventures, we wouldn't have any of that. So, and there's like and he's talking about it, the odds were against him pretty badly, right? He still did it, and he became very successful. I mean, we all know.
Last time we checked, yes, exactly. We talked about human element, we talked about inspiration, we talked about the art of possible. We didn't talk about technology at all. I guess that's not a coincidence, but just kind of, getting there in a way that what kind of, again, decisions companies need to make when choosing technology partners, when choosing technologies, because again, right, it's a vast field, and a lot of decisions need to happen to ensure that project success. Otherwise, right? So let's not dismiss the technology altogether. All I'm saying.
No, I think the technology is one of the most critical parts. The complexity here is that it changes every year, right? if we would have written a book about technology, it would be old by now, and we published in February. Like, from that perspective, it's like, it's a critical part. We talk about the framework and what needs to be done with the different elements, but even the pieces in the book might be already, I don't want to say outdated, but in half a year from now, we have more requirements on, Gen AI models and LLM models. And right now, the investment that's required in order to run them is really, really high. Is it going to get higher, or is it going to get lower? I think we're going to get more efficient, but eventually, the expenses are going to go up. They're actually not going down. From that perspective, it's more about, understanding the bits and pieces and what's possible in order to understand what is required in order to run it. I think that's the important piece. If we don't talk about real, like, R&D in that field, we try to talk about applying it and applying LLM models for use cases. But I think, yeah, there's no okay, that's the best way of doing it. There's different approaches to it, and we talk about in the book, about, build or buy decisions. Which one, we talk about companies that buy it, that buy pieces to it, or companies that build their whole environment. Which one is the best one? It's really hard to say. It really depends on the companies and what they're doing and their specialization. If there's also elements that are, become more commodity, right? So I don't think organizations need to reinvent the wheel of data management. Right. So there's organizations out there that, building the platforms and technologies, and, to build a competitive edge on it, it's really, really hard. And there's like a handful of organizations that, need to be real time, or, they need to have specific requirements for their use cases on data. Then it might be a competitive edge to, work on those fields. But otherwise, it's usually a buy decision compared to, building it. But, it always depends on how can you create value. Where do you create your competitive edge? Where do you create your unique selling proposition for an organization?
What people created out there, those who are focused on this, those who are actually software people, right, that can support your need. We touched on so many moving parts. It's overwhelming to some, absolutely. So I encourage everyone to follow Michael Proch. I encourage to find out what are these key elements in the book that he mentioned, because yes, it's not an easy endeavor. But we do want to close, I think, with some of the inspiring key takeaways. Michael, could you share, okay, those who are courageous enough, those who are equipped with their knowledge, with their budget, and understanding, most of all, understanding what they're trying to achieve. Few takeaways from this conversation that audience can remember us by.
I mean, I think it's about, being experimental and, allow failure, accept failure. It's going to be a journey. It's going to take a while. It's not going to be from the day to tomorrow. It's about, creating something unique, creating something that organizations are, can differentiate themselves with compared to their competition. How can you create you know, extra value to your customers, to your employees, to your organization? And we encourage everybody, that has that, mindset and want to create that, to join us in the discussions. And, if you read the book, please come back to us, provide feedback, tell us what you think, tell us what, where you say, I don't agree, find mistakes, tell us the mistakes we made. We're happy to, the next edition, to, correct them, or, bring out new examples where we see, okay, somebody has done it differently and we haven't seen that yet. So we're all very curious and want to learn every single day. We like to have a community. So we like to talk to people and learn from others, because that's way easier to learn from others that made the mistakes than, making them yourself. So it would be great if other people share their mistakes with us. Yeah, feel free to read the book, buy it on Amazon, and join the discussion. Connect on LinkedIn with us and with us authors and contributors, and, yeah, tell us what you think.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, so very much for your time. Great times ahead. Thank you for scratching that surface. I'm sure, yeah, we'll be finding more and more in upcoming months and years. So please welcome, come back to SaugaTalks with updates, with the new approaches, with new thoughts. And yeah, thank you again so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.